Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Suzy Rosenstein.
Hey there. Today we are revisiting a popular episode from the past about how to have fun on the regular. Actually, every day. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle with over 1 million downloads and counting. I'm your host, Suzy Rosenstein, your master certified coach and midlife mentor, and I'm so glad to be here with you again. So every once in a while, I bring you an Encore episode, an episode that was published before but was so good and so popular that I wanted to share it with you again. And when it comes to figuring out how to have more fun in midlife, I think you can imagine why this is a super popular episode. In fact, I ask women if they're having enough fun in their lives when they fill out an application to book a call with me, and the answer is a resounding no. Now, do you find that curious? I looked up the definition of fun, and here's what Merriam-Webster says. What provides amusement or enjoyment, specifically playful, often boisterous action or speech. Full of fun, a mood for finding or making amusement. Now, fun sounds fun, right? So why aren't we having more of it? My educated guess is that as women in the middle, it's too easy to be in a rush to be productive with your time. Fun can feel indulgent, and that can get in the way of relaxing into some silliness and pleasure, if you know what I mean. Then there's this reason, it's also too easy to be in the habit of putting everyone else first. So as you'll hear in this episode, this isn't a typical recipe for having fun as a regular part of your life. Wah, wah. You know what I mean? This isn't going to work. Okay, but just quick, before we go deeper into the super fun direction of how to have more fun, I want to make sure you know about the new way to have more fun with the Women in the Middle podcast. You're invited to join the new podcast club. Let me tell you what this is all about. The podcast club is basically a book club experience for the podcast. We're going to be going deeper into the podcast conversation started in a recent episode. You're going to get a Zoom call with me once a month, an easy-to-use podcast Go Deeper guide with thought-provoking questions to help you apply what you're learning on the podcast to your own life. And also, there'll be some fun surprises along the way, including prizes. You're also going to be able to chat with me directly and share your thoughts with me and other like-minded women. So don't waste another minute. It's shockingly affordable. So check it out and sign up at www.suzyrosenstein.com and click on the Podcast Club button or go directly to suzyrosenstein.com/podcast-club. I can't wait to get this party started. Now there's one more new opportunity. Are you ready to get clear, make some amazing plans, and love your life? Have I got the workshop for you? You have to check out the Happiness and Success Workshop. Take the first step on your road to being happier by getting clear about what you want. It's as simple and beautifully complex as that. Your new mantra will be less busy and more focused as you move forward in your next chapter, even if you're an entrepreneur. To create the success and fulfillment you're looking for, you also have to create more happiness. It's all related. So get started now. Head over to www.createhappinessnow.com and sign up for the next available workshop. Okay, now for this Encore episode, we're going back to episode 258, Fun on the Daily in Midlife in 4 Easy Steps. Timing-wise, this would have been recorded in spring 2022. I really think having more fun is a big deal, and based on the iTunes reviews you're leaving, I think you would agree. You like the fun, upbeat nature of the podcast, and that says something. And it also begs the question, how do you go about having more fun on purpose and on the daily? And that's what this episode is all about, so enjoy. Did you hear it? That's that funny little sound again, and that's because it's time for another one of Suzy's Fun Finds. Now, you may recall that I introduced something new recently, a new fun little segment, actually about fun. I thought this was the perfect way to start this episode As you know, I feel really strongly about introducing more fun, more joy, and more pleasure into the midlife experience. Because, if you're not paying attention, it can be a total scary drag. And it really starts with noticing what you actually think is fun and then leaning more into it. And that's what's happening these days for me when it comes to the birds. I just love birds. Now, you may recall also that I have a little bird, Dee Dee the Quaker parrot. She's adorable and extremely entertaining. She's also a bit of a YouTube sensation and has over 150,000 views on YouTube. If you want to watch, just type in Dee Dee, that's D-E-E-D-E-E, Quaker parrot, or head over to the show notes for a direct link. But if you type in Dee Dee Quaker parrot, it'll come right up and you'll see something about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. But what I wanted to share with you is a cool new app that I've fallen head over heels in love with. It helps you identify bird sounds in real time. It's amazing, and it's called Merlin Bird ID, and it's put out by the Cornell Lab. It's free, it's fun, and it is fabulous. It's also as easy as can be. You basically just press the Sound ID button, and it starts recording and listening to the bird sounds that are nearby. Then it identifies them lickety-split, and you even see a picture of that type of bird, the bird who is tweeting. I'll give you an example. I just stepped outside and turned it on in my backyard. So right away I could see a few birds on my feeders, but there were way more bird sounds than I could see, and I was only out there for less than a minute. The app Merlin told me I was listening to red-breasted nuthatch, black-capped chickadee, downy woodpecker, house sparrow, and an American goldfinch. Boom! Just like that. I'd also like to thank an amazing Woman in the Middle listener and member of my community, Tony in Muncie, Indiana, for telling me about this app because I am in love. So far, I've learned so much with birds in my backyard ravine in Toronto, the birds at the family cottage in Bobcaygeon, Ontario, and the birds in the Palm Springs area in California. I've also shared it with tons of people. So if you love birds and have a strange amount of fun learning about them and immersing yourself in their world, grab this app. Okay, let's dive into this topic of having more fun on the daily. Like I said, the Merlin app is one example of how I easily created more fun for myself on the daily. Notice the elements of what happened to create this opportunity of having this app on my phone, which is so much like the podcast app. It's what I like to call a party in your purse because it's with you all the time, and with a click of a button, you have instant fun and entertainment. So the question is, what can you learn about how to have fun on the daily from my experience with the birds? It starts with the most simple of observations. Ask yourself, what do I actually like? What do I like to learn, to do, to see, to experience, to enjoy, to immerse myself in, to smile about, and to make more time for? Now, that doesn't seem hard, right? What do I actually like? But believe it or not, even this little innocent question can be murky and fraught with confusion. It's hard for many women in the middle to acknowledge and accept what they like, what they want, what's amazing for them, and what is worthy of putting a spotlight on, of valuing, of supporting, of prioritizing. So that's why we have to start there. Now, if you're drawing a blank, go back to your childhood. So quick, name 3 things you had fun with all the time when you were a kid. These 3 things are highly likely to be fun for you today, too. I have a great worksheet about this, and I will pop a link to it in the show notes. I really believe that fun carries over throughout the decades. So what you had fun with back then, you can also rely on to have fun with now, too. So what was fun for you? I'd like to suggest that however you identify what you like to have fun with, you end up with at least 3 things to play with. Your top 3 fun things. And don't worry, you can change the list. You don't have to commit to it forever. You can add to the list. But I would love for you to just start there. And actually, I think that once you grease the fun wheels in your life, your brain might actually explode with ideas. Now, the other thing I want to focus on is that the fun factor ideas don't have to be grand. In fact, I want them to be things you can incorporate on the daily, like I do with the Merlin app and the birds. So for me, step number 1 has been gradually increasing for me over the past 15 years. When I really think about it, even more than that. But I always loved nature and nature photography, but in the last 15 years, it really picked up. So I love going to bird conservation parks, and I have wonderful memories of buying my first SLR camera when I was a grad student back in the 80s. It was a second or third hand Russian camera called the Zenit. And I had a few cool lenses and filters, and wow, I was in love. Those years in the 80s were when I first really started to have fun with photography and flowers and birds in particular, and butterflies, but mostly birds. Then years later, I brought Dee Dee, the Quaker parrot, into my life. I wanted to do more than just photograph the birds. I really wanted to have a relationship with the bird. I know that might sound a little funny, but I really wanted to get to know a bird well and not just feed them in the wild. Although, boy, have I started doing that too. So this is it. Step number 1 is that you have to notice it. And then step number 2 is that you have to acknowledge it. So you have to notice what is fun for you. And when I really look back, for me, it went all the way back to the 80s, but thinking about my life, it's really picked up in the last 15 years. But I noticed it. It's always been fun, and it's fun for me now too. And then step number 2 is you have to acknowledge it. And the way you do that is you sanction spending time and resources on what is fun for you. So in my case, even back then, when I was a poor grad student, I acknowledged it and prioritized it. And I spent time and resources. Like I didn't have a lot of money, but somehow I came up with a few dollars to purchase that old clunky camera, the Zenit, and the fancy telephoto lens. I had to think, yes, this is important. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's worth it. I'm worth it. So really focus on that. Whatever it is for you, worth it for you to spend time and resources on it. Is it worth it? And do you have any thoughts about you not being worthy enough to value something like that? So watch out for any thoughts like that pop up. But really what I had to think at that time, I enjoy it. It's fun. It's worth it. I'm worth it. And step number 3, you have to do it. You have to take action. So in my case, I got the camera. I got good at taking pictures of birds. I share my life with a bird. And then in the last 10, 15 years, feeding the birds has become a big deal. There's a lot going on in my backyard. Seriously. Lots of bird feeders, lots of different kind of seed. And then the bird bath. I was really looking for a bird bath for a long time. And then the solar-powered bird fountain. I love that. And then the Merlin app. That's kind of where we're at now with it all. Now, I know I've talked about pleasure and passion and hobbies and prioritizing this kind of stuff before on the Women in the Middle podcast. And what I really want to emphasize today is related to the expression on the daily. My life with the birds example is really birds on the daily. There is so much bird action right now outside my office window that I can't even tell you how much enjoyment and fun that I have as a result of this. Locating the bird feeders, the bird bath, the solar fountain, like all of it right in a way that I have direct line of vision to see it all. So much fun. Seeing 7 or 8 different types of birds all splashing around in my bird bath is just music to my ears and my eyes. I have to say. It's unbelievably fun. And going to the bird store is fun. I even have a bird clock that's going to tweet in like a minute. I'm going to have to pause so you don't hear it. But I have a bird clock that tweets on the hour, and it messes me up with podcasts sometimes. Talking about how to attract different birds to the yard is fun. I've even gotten my husband interested in it. Now he talks about it, and he likes going to the bird store. But seeing a pileated woodpecker last winter out there on my feeder, I just about had a heart attack. I was looking outside. They're massive if you haven't seen one. Super fun. Anyway, I saw it and I just screamed, "Pileated woodpecker!" I wanted everybody in the house to hear it, and they could hear it, and they did hear it, and they were like, "What is Mom talking about?" And then they looked out and they were floored. It was fun. It was so much fun on so many levels. Okay, and that brings me to number 4. Embrace it. You gotta embrace the concept of daily fun. What does fun on the daily look like to you? Nature? Laughter? More people? Fewer people? More kids? More family? More yummy coffee? More music? More hobbies? What can you do to increase more fun every day? What do you have to think to embrace this idea? Sometimes the best way to get at this is to think about what gets in your way. What's your resistance to having more fun on the daily? At first glance, you wouldn't even think you could be resistant to anything about this idea. But I've seen this over and over again with clients and women in the academy. We do get in our own way, and you do this too. In fact, a common regret is that you don't allow yourself to be happier. Isn't that powerful? You don't allow yourself to be happier. That is what so many people regret later in life. Why wouldn't you allow yourself to be happier? Think about it. So with this fun on the daily concept, you have to do 4 easy steps. You have to notice what you think is fun. You have to acknowledge that fun for you is a worthy endeavor. You have to do more fun things, and you have to embrace the experience of fun on the daily. Now, this all means that in order for fun on the daily to be part of your life, you have to allow yourself to have more fun on a regular basis. If you don't allow it, it just won't happen, and you just might regret it. You may remember that I absolutely love whales and whale watching. That's something I am quite passionate about, like it's my favorite thing. But I'm not able to do it or have fun with it on the daily. The fun on the daily concept encourages you to think small, accessible, affordable. The kinds of ideas where it's hard to get in your own way. For example, if coffee or tea was fun for you, you could absolutely have more fun with it daily. You could have a different tea bag every single day. You could learn something about tea. You could have a fun spoon. You could have really cool iced tea. You could explore different tea stores. I received the most amazing gift recently of rose petal sugar cubes. That right there showed me that I could even have more fun with coffee or tea because of sugar. And the reason I knew that I thought it was so delightful is because my immediate reaction was to squeal with glee when I opened up the present. I was like, what? It was so beautiful and such attention to something so small and delightful and fun. And I don't even use sugar in my coffee or tea, but I appreciated how I was feeling about it. Now, I've also seen women have a ton of fun with nail polish. My friend Dawn has gorgeous nails all the time to match the seasons or her outfits or even special activities. Again, it's a reminder that you can easily have more fun with things like that. Small things, small effort. One time I saw in a magazine that you could paint a white flower with just a dot of color in the middle. So you do like a pink nail, white petals, and then maybe a bright orange dot in the middle. That was so much fun. I had that on my big toes for years. In fact, now that we're talking about it, I may do that again this summer. It was so easy and so much fun. Another example is something that my son does. He takes pride in his knife skills when preparing food in the kitchen. He thinks it's fun. Now, I don't think about it the same way. He doesn't feel rushed, and he gets a lot of pleasure out of it. And what he cuts and how he prepares food, it's beautiful. And one time he looked at me and he said, Mom, I kind of see our cooking style is different. You kind of have a family style. And what he was getting at, I don't know, it was like a big bowl or a big casserole full of food. And he was really appreciating how he was plating things and how his cuts and the food that he was cutting had symmetry. I don't care about stuff like that, but he does. It was fun for him. He got pleasure out of it. So think about for you. You probably use a knife every day. Why not have more fun with it on the daily? Here's another one. 2 of my sons love bike riding. They do it as much as possible. They love it, but they've taken it another step. They have apps that communicate their rides with their friends. They take pictures of cool parts of the city when they're biking through. They are having fun, and it's free, and it's possible to have this kind of fun on the daily. They have a bike. They commit to ride it more, and they commit to riding as much as possible and interesting places. So I think you're getting my point. Whatever it is, if it's small, if it's bright, if it's in the house, if it's outside the house, if it's in the grocery store, if it's delicious, whatever. If it is fun and readily accessible for you, why not open yourself up to doing it on the daily? So here are the 4 steps again. Notice what you think is fun. Acknowledge that fun for you is a worthy endeavor. Do more fun things and embrace the experience of fun on the daily. So the big question for you is, are you worth it? Are you intrigued by this? Would you regret not doing it? Would you allow yourself the pleasure of having more fun in your life like this? I highly recommend it. Let's do this, my friend. More fun on the daily. It's a very good thing. Okay, that is it for this episode. As you know, this podcast is all about how to love your life again after 50. It's really all about coaching you to be more intentional and to incorporate mindfulness into your life as a regular practice. This is how you put yourself on your agenda. My focus as your midlife coach is to help you get unstuck, clear, and focused on your current values and priorities so you don't have regrets. I can help you have the success you're looking for. That's why I created the Women in the Middle Academy with you in mind, because it's a warm, supportive, and fun coaching community of like-minded women who grow forward together so you feel great about your roadmap to a more fun, meaningful, and regret-free chapter. Email me your questions and let's talk about it and see if it's for you. Go ahead and book your free, no-obligation momentum call at www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. If you want to take the podcast conversation to a whole new level, join the Women in the Middle Podcast Club by heading over to SuzyRosenstein.com and clicking the Podcast Club button. And if you're ready for more happiness and success in your life, head over to www.createhappinessnow.com and sign up for the next workshop. And finally, for show notes and links, head over to SuzyRosenstein.com and click the podcast tab and look for episode 319. Thanks so much for listening. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you next week.